About public education. Public education isn't just a cause for me, it's deeply personal. As a proud graduate of Jefferson County Schools and having children in the same district, I know firsthand the vital role our public schools play in our community's future. It's crucial that we come together in an unwavering support for our public schools. They're the bedrock of our democracy, where our future leaders are molded and shaped every day. But our support must go on past mere words. It's our actions that mean the most. We must ensure our public schools receive the funding they need and remain free from public and political interference. Our educators, support staff, and parents know exactly what our students need, and it's up to us to listen and carry that through in action. Do educators really have the support they need to succeed? That's the question we all must answer, and that's the reason we're here. It's our teachers and support staff that work tirelessly every day to champion our students' growth and well-being every single day. I'm proud to say that the AFT stands at the forefront of this crucial battle. We're committed to ensuring that our students, teachers, and support staff members have the support they need to thrive and be successful. Our union's dedication to safeguarding the future of our democracy is unwavering, and we're determined to bring about meaningful change. Together, we can all ensure that our public schools remain the beacons of opportunity and excellence for generations to come. It's my honored privilege to work alongside our international president, my sister, and our fearless leader, Randi Weingarten, whose unwavering leadership continues to inspire all of us every day. At this time, I would like to introduce and bring up Richard Franklin, the president of Birmingham AFT. Thank you.
Should we all stand around Richard?
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
that's correct.
Good morning. My name is Richard Franklin, president of Birmingham AFT. I've been doing this for a while, and some battles we continue to fight, and they do it in a different name. I'm the president, but I'm also a parent. I'm also a product of Birmingham City Schools. So if you just stop and think about this for a second, you just heard Erica Hughes, the president of Central Alabama, and me being Richard Franklin, and we're products of our system. So this is not just we're not just some figureheads. And you will also hear from Randi in a little while, and you'll find out her connection to public education as well. But in Alabama, we have I call it the backwards history. We have so much potential. In 2013, the state of Alabama passed the Accountability Act, and they targeted my community and communities that look like my community. And they said the Accountability Act would give us the option or choice to go to a private school and a scholarship. Well, what's interesting is they forget that when you make these statements, you have to hold yourself accountable. As a parent in the community I live in, I'm considered, and my kids are considered in my family, one of those areas where we never got the choice or option. That was 2013. This is 2024. Last year, they raised the cap of the money from $6,000 to $10,000. I asked the question to the governor and the legislators, who did the money go to? So this year, we hear a choice, some bill about choice and vouchers. Who is it for? You also hear things going on in the legislature about books and history. I want you to think for a second. Today, legislators and governors, you're writing your own history today. It's not for all children. It doesn't take rocket science. People just want an equitable opportunity for education. The state of Alabama and most of the South, for some reason, we won't get past our old history. We have an opportunity. Randi will talk about real solutions. And we mean real solutions. We are not some figureheads. Every day, we struggle. We have 1,700 students that are homeless in Birmingham City schools. The state of Alabama has 500 and 700 and some kids that are homeless. When you think about that, isn't that the role of the legislator and the governor? Shouldn't they be concerned about that? When you just study our history. So this voucher bill, it's already research that show you who this money is going for. And we can't be afraid to call our elected officials out. I often tell people, this is a non-election year for our legislators and governors. So in these years, they attack education. Next year, they won't attack education. They're going to act like they're our friends because they want us to vote for them. So we must remember today, there must be accountability towards them. We need their support. In Birmingham City Schools, there was an article written, and Dr. Spencer Horn, our chief of staff, he would talk about it a little bit in the New York Times 2 weeks ago, I think it was, where during COVID, during the roughest time, our district that's often, I'm a product of it, we've struggled. Many social ills. We were one of 8 districts in the whole United States that showed significant improvement. The reason I bring that up is because those of us that are here today know that when Birmingham does bad, we tell Birmingham we're bad. But in a time when we should be celebrated, we're not celebrating. So we're going to celebrate. And we're going to ask the legislators, we know what's right for our children, to just talk to us, to just communicate with us and support us. We have models and there's some things that we've done, and also in Central Alabama, that the entire state can copy. And to make it very simple, before I turn it over to Randi, those of us that are here, we're all using some form of internet today. And I've often said, when you travel our state, in certain parts, they're still on dial-up. So we cannot shoot for the moon in a classroom if you can't even use internet the way that it should be used. So we need to invest even in something that simple. So I thank you for being here. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Randi Weingarten. I call her the legend. We actually started, I got elected, and I think it was the next week, Randi was president. First thing, she started being on MSNBC, everything. Randi is a fighter for everything. She's actually the bridger since Albert Shanker for the South. She cares about the South. She's always been here supporting, and she don't have to be here. Because most people would say in Alabama we're a red state, and when it comes to education, it doesn't matter. But I personally, and me and Erica, we thank her for being here because she has the expertise as the national president about vouchers and all these crazy bills. And you're going to find out a little history that some of it is just copied. It's not like our legislators and governor just thought of this. So thank you, Randi, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Richard, how many times have we walked the Edmund Pettus Bridge? How many times have we done that? Yeah. How many times have I been here?
A lot.
So, and I've been here a lot, not just because I'm old, which I am, but I've been here a lot because it's important to be in Alabama. It's important to be in Georgia. It's important to be in Kentucky. It's important to be in Florida. It's important to be in North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi. It is important to be everywhere in the country to lift up, as Erica just said, as Richard just said, what our members and what teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, OTs, PTs, superintendents, assistant superintendents. It's important to lift up what educators do every day. And too often, their work is not lifted up. And so when I stop anywhere in the country, the first thing I insist on doing is being in a school, saying thank you to the educators, looking and talking to kids, seeing what we do. And what Erica just said, and I want to dwell on that for a second, public education is one of the only things we do in this country that is accepted by most, and it is a noble purpose of helping our kids be able to seize their dreams. Not just dream them, as King said at the March on Washington, but seize those opportunities. We can never, ever forget that. And regardless of what else is going on in the country, regardless of the division, regardless of red and blue and purple and anything else, any of the other colors, poll after poll after poll. There's a new UCLA poll in the last few days that says the same thing as some polls that we saw from last year. That if you say to people, the only thing you can do is either fund public education or have a privatized system, even if you call that privatized system choice, if that's the only thing you can do, 75 to 25, 80 to 20. In this country these days, still say we need public education. So if we're actually listening to the will of the people, sorry, I'm a social studies teacher. If we're actually listening to the will of the people, which is what the United States Constitution is about for all 50 states, then the will of the people is to have public education. Not defund it, not destroy it, not demagogue it. Make it better, as Richard just said. We have to make it better. But that, at the end of the day, public education is really literally the only thing, maybe other than Social Security, that we give to people in America to say, this is a part of American patriotism. This is part of the American dream. Period. Full stop. And so we're here today to say that's what our priority should be. And in public schools across the country and across Alabama and across central Alabama, I saw in 2 schools in the last 2 days, Burkett in central Alabama, in Jeffco Ed, excuse me, and Parker in Birmingham City. 2 schools where passion meets purpose. You see that in the kids and in the educators. I saw that in the educators taking special needs kids off bus after bus after bus at Burkett. I heard that, not just walking through the halls, the hallowed halls of Parker, but also talking to young adults who were going to Montgomery this weekend to compete in competitions on healthcare and on debate and on career tech ed. I heard that from the superintendent in Jeffco yesterday, talking about how they have completely changed the career tech ed options and the availability of them for students throughout Jeffco. We just heard, and we'll hear some more, about what the Birmingham Public Schools have done. Every day we see people who rant against public education wanting to talk about the effects of COVID, and the effects of COVID were great. This is part of what our Real Solutions campaign is about. How do we overcome them? But silence when we see districts like Chicago doing quite well this year, or Birmingham recovering this year. Silence. That is the work of educators who are standing behind me. That's the work of teachers. That's the work of paras. That's the work of bus drivers. That's where passion meets purpose. So you can imagine that we're very concerned about a situation which has just been passed in the Alabama House that basically hugely takes money out of public schools and gives them to private schools. In virtually all these voucher programs, The choice is the schools, not the parents. And case after case, evidence after evidence shows that, like Richard just said. But why listen to me? Just this week, this Monday, two Southern governors, Governor Cooper from North Carolina and Governor Bashir from Kentucky, wrote a whole op-ed about why these voucher programs are wrong and went through who's the winners and who's the losers about these voucher programs. Essentially, they take money away from the 90% of kids that go to public schools, and they make it much harder for these educators to do the work that we have to do. And the work that we have to do is pressing. Because our job, regardless of whether we get the resources or not, our job is to make every public school a place where parents want to send their kids, where educators want to work, and where kids thrive. And this Real Solutions campaign, where you see some of the shirts all around, because of course we got to have shirts and T-shirts to talk about what we're doing. But what is this Real Solutions campaign about? What it's about is saying, look, we have to continuously improve education. We got to look at what's going on in the world. We got to look at what's going on with our kids. And we, the people who think about this all the time, let's actually try to have strategies that help. Okay, others can smear. I'm sure they will. They'll say all sorts of names about me. I've heard it before. I'll hear it again. I don't care about the smears. I don't care about the stunts. I care about what we can do to help educators help kids. And that's what the Real Solutions campaign is about. So what we're doing is we're taking 5 different strategies that we believe will work. Some of them are strategies we've done for a long time. Like, if you pay people a living wage, they don't have to work 3 jobs, and they can actually do the work that you need them to do. And if you pay people a living wage, you'll have more educators who are working in schools. You don't have the kind of substitute teacher crisis that the New York Times talked about a few days ago. You don't have the crisis when you have all sorts of special needs kids. You need an extra set of hands all the time. You don't have that crisis when you pay people. And what happens in the United States of America is that we got a hot labor market. And if the skills that you need to teach, you need in other places as well, you have what we call the teacher pay penalty. And what is that nationally? You can get about 25% more if with the similar skills in other jobs. So we got to compete. And just today, one of our locals in Philadelphia did an early contract so that they could compete, so that they could increase salaries. You got to do that. You have to do that in order for us to have the best and the brightest for our kids, period. So when I say there's some things that we're proposing are things that have happened where we proposed for a long time, that's one of them. But these are the other things that I want to talk about. We have to really focus on loneliness, on learning loss, and on literacy. And in a day and time of AI, it's a little crazy that we still have dial-up when the jobs of today and tomorrow are going to be, basically a lot of them are going to be technology-driven. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to do things like wrap services around schools like I saw at Burkett today. We should be wrapping breakfast and lunch and other kind of services, OTs and PTs and nurses around schools, so schools are the centers of community. That costs money. Those types of things, when we do that, scores rise. Just look at some of the community schools that we have in Baltimore or in New York City and other places. And think about what happens when we are really engaged with kids in that kind of way. What happens in terms of loneliness. Think about what happens when we bring families together. Number 2, we have to make sure that kids love to read. We've done professional development in Central Alabama a lot. We've done it with Birmingham. Kids, when they learn to read, it opens up their minds, it opens up their passion. So what the AFT is doing is we're helping with the science of reading. This, spoiler alert, we make it free. Go to Reading Universe, a website to help with the science of reading. We have invested in that. But more than that, as others are banning books, we give them out. This year, we haven't done it yet. We're up to 9 million and plus. We're going to get to that 10, Big Ten. Now, Big Ten, we know about football. For me, Big Ten is not just football, it's also bucks. We will get to the 10 million. And the one, and this is the last thing I'll say, the one that I am really passionate about, is I am an AP Gov teacher from New York City who taught in a CTE school, a career tech ed school. I love career tech ed. I think career tech ed opens minds and opens opportunities. So in a time where we're seeing manufacturing come back to the United States, where we're seeing all sorts of other huge changes because of the internet, because of AI, let's actually find ways from junior high school and high school on to have opportunities for kids. So those choices should not be schools making choices about kids and parents. It should be kids having choices about opportunities. And that is what experiential learning is. That's what debate is. That's what music and art is. That is what I saw from those two young adults who I talked to at Parker. That's what going into a culinary program, going into an advanced manufacturing program, going into a healthcare program, starting it in high school, having an alignment with the employers in a town or a community so there are paid internships for our kids and having opportunities like that. So we are working with Birmingham on trying to create that, and we met with the superintendent in Jeffco yesterday who is doing that. This is the kind of opportunities, that's the kind of work we're trying to say in terms of real solutions. Let's make sure every public school is a place parents want to send their kids, educators want to work, and kids thrive. And it starts with the Real Solutions campaign and investing in kids, not taking money out. Thank you. You're doing the intro, right? Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. The next person that's going to come speak, you heard Randi talk about real solutions. You look at the church that for kids and communities. So you think of what makes up a community. If you notice on the other side, those of us that, I live in Alabama. When the legislators, they do something, they bring group people up, and they live from somewhere. So what we want to show you is a model that we know works. In Birmingham, we have 99 neighborhoods. Each neighborhood has a president, and you have communities in Birmingham. So today, I have Ms. Adrienne Reynolds. She's a neighborhood president, Eden Ridge, and she's also the Smithfield community president, and she's also the CAB secretary, right, of the 99 neighborhoods. And I just wanted her to talk a little bit about the work that you see community that they do to support the schools.
Good morning. My name is Adrienne Reynolds, and I represent the community here in the city of Birmingham. In Birmingham, as Mr. Franklin stated, we have 99 neighborhoods. Those 99 neighborhoods are divided into 23 communities. From those 23 communities, we have what we call Citizens Advisory Board, and we meet monthly to talk about the issues of the community. And one such issue is, what do we do for our schools in our neighborhoods? Or how can we help the principals and the teachers do their job more effectively? What we do is on a voluntary basis, but that's okay. We don't worry about that. But when a school needs for parents to come in and read to the little ones, we do that. When a school calls us and says that we're having Saturday school And we need for you to provide just a little breakfast for our children and our staff who's coming in on a Saturday now to work with our students. We are there to help do that. When they call us to say that we need for you to show up, our children are presenting a program and they want to meet you and talk to you to ask what's going on in the neighborhood that they can be involved in, we show up for that. And I said all of that just to make one quick point, and that is that we support the funding for public schools. In whatever form that shows up, we support it. Why? Because I too, like Mr. Franklin and so many others, am a product of the Birmingham public school system. And so I know the value of the education that the Birmingham public system can give. And I do my level best. I chose to stay in the city of Birmingham because I know the value of what the education system is. And so, therefore, I'm giving back because I want to see other children and others benefit from what Birmingham system can do. We need the funding. We want the funding. We want it to continue because how else can we continue on if we don't do something now so that our children can benefit and pass it on? And with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Franklin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. I want to thank Ms. Reynolds. I want to connect something when we say community. I was a student at Parker, and we had a volunteer program, Parents on Patrol. And during that time, Ms. Reynolds, when I would walk through the hall, she would tell us, get to class. Something that small, we formed this relationship, and it's an impact. So with a lot of these models that you hear the legislators around the country, you can't make this stuff up. This is an ongoing relationship for life. Now, the next person that I'm going to bring up, I want you to understand, AFT, many of us know we don't have administrators that hire, fire. But this next individual, we have an awesome relationship with because his kids attended Birmingham City Schools. So, as we often say, we have skin in the game. And it's the chief of staff, Dr. Horn. He's well respected throughout the state and throughout our system. And I wanted him to come up and that celebration part. Remember I said the accomplishment that Birmingham City Schools did during COVID and is still doing. And with our members, I wanted Dr. Horn to come up and just tell a little bit about some of the things that we did as a system that got us here.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Ms. Hughes, Mr. Franklin, Ms. Weingarten. I'm Spencer Horn, Chief of Staff of Birmingham City Schools. On behalf of Dr. Sullivan, we want to thank you all for coming to Birmingham to talk about education. Anytime we can get education on the front pages, we need to take that opportunity. So I really appreciate you being here to do that. And just to start, and I won't be here but a moment, but just to start, Mr. Franklin talked about the COVID issue and all the challenges that COVID brought to schools across the country, and really across the world. Birmingham, when that happened, had to transform and had to recreate how it approached education so that we could meet that challenge, but not just meet it, but look to excel and progress in that challenge. And that's what we did. Birmingham City immediately knew that with the students who were out, we had to find a way to have more contact hours with the students. How do we do that? Well, one of the ways we did it was to involve our calendar with what we call intersession. And this doesn't take away days from students, but it adds time where parents and children could choose to come to school to not only get support on things that they may need support around, but also get an enhancement. Because there were those who were really doing well even during this time. So we wanted to continue to push those students as well. Beyond that, we knew that there was a social and emotional component that we had to address around students and what they were going through and what families were going through, even what our faculty and staff was going through. So the social and emotional and wraparound services that were provided to the students we knew that had to be an integral part of the overall plan to support and move our students to where they needed to be. In the end, we made substantial gains both in math and in literacy, that the recovery was a lot faster, and some of the numbers were mentioned in terms of our comparison with other districts across the nation. We made substantial progress in recouping the learning for students in literacy, reading, as well as math. Now, we're happy with that, but we're not satisfied with that. So the questions and the next part of it is continuing that momentum, continuing to make sure that we put in place the supports around the students, the family, our faculty and staff, and utilizing community support to make sure we're all in this together and that we're moving the district and supporting our students together. So here again, the conversation around education has to stay on the front pages, and we appreciate you all being here to make that happen. So I know some questions and answers are coming up, so I'm going to get out of the way and let that happen.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
All right, any questions?
I'm good, y'all good? 13, you got something?
Dr.
Randy.
Randi, and I need you to stop. So the biggest concern that we're seeing out of this is what the state is implementing? Or
Correct.
is this more so for what is there too much of a need of parents calling for privatization, or are they more backing behind public schools?
Look, there's just, as I just said, UCLA just did a poll. I haven't seen a poll of Alabama parents, but UCLA just did a poll last few days, 75-25 public schools. Even when you say that's the only choice, public schools or these voucher programs, there's not a clamor for these voucher programs. Are you going to find one or two? Are you going to find parents who say that the school that I'm zoned for or something else is not working for my kids? Always. And frankly, our job is to make sure that we make every public school a place where parents want to send their kids, educators want to work, and kids succeed. But all of this, what's happening right now across the country, Alabama as Exhibit A, is just, it is a taking of the money that is needed for public schools, and it's putting them into privatized settings that basically are only used by people who already go to private schools. And when you look at the data, you notice none of this is ever sold anymore about what happens in these places. That's the way they used to be sold about 10 years ago, because the data is really terrible.
How badly would this impact public schools if there was this?
It will be
access
terrible.
to-
Well, it's not that, it's what happens is it's frankly, and we're seeing this now in Florida, it's not an exodus of, it is a depletion of funding, because overwhelmingly most of the money goes to people who already send their kids to private schools, so most of it actually goes to the wealthy.
And so when that happens, how bad is this affecting students for grades, their socialization?
It's when you don't have, like what has happened over the last few years, is we are very blessed because we got the American Rescue Plan that President Biden proposed and went to all states. It didn't say, okay, if you're a blue state, you got it, a red state, you didn't. It went to all states, just like the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and the Bipartisan CHIPS Act. It goes everywhere. So that has actually cloaked some of the effects of what's going to happen next year. That money ends. So this is going to be a huge, big fiscal problem that's going to take money away from students. You're welcome. Anybody else?
I guess I was just kind of reading over
A real solution.
the points in the resolution. Yes, sorry, I'm sick still, but it's
No
not
problem.
working properly today. I know you've launched the campaign. I guess just what are some things that you guys are doing to implement this
So,
in our communities?
I can't believe you asked me that question. Just last week in New York City, we, the unions, worked with a former mayor who we didn't always agree with on things. I mean, Mayor Bloomberg. We worked with Mayor Bloomberg, who put $25 million into a new healthcare school, the biggest investment of private money into New York City schools probably ever, and Northwell Healthcare, which is the biggest employer in the state of New York, and it's a healthcare complex. It's, you know, it's a bunch of hospitals in Queens and in Long Island and all sorts of other places. So you're getting my point. And we created a new high school for healthcare. And this is what's going to happen in this high school. There's going to be and it's in Queens, which needed a new high school. So there's going to be 4 different healthcare pathways. And Northwell is going to make sure, so we as the educators are going to do the curriculum and make sure as kids graduate from high school, they're ready for college, they're ready for a career. And in those 4 pathways, Northwell is going to make sure that there's paid internships for every single one of those young people. And then if those young people want to work in the places where they're getting these certifications in these 4 areas, they're going to get an interview from Northwell. But if they want to work, if they want to go to college, they'll go to college. And this is what we know. This is why I'm really focused on experiential learning and career tech ed. The stat that I normally say all the time, but obviously it waited to your question, which is 94% of kids in these qualified CTE programs graduate from high school on time, and 72% go to college. So what else happens? And the superintendent yesterday was telling us this: 60% of kids who graduate from high school right now don't go to college. It's 70% in Jefferson County. So what are we doing if we're not helping prepare kids to have these opportunities? This is what choice really should be. Kids having agency, kids having choice. And we're working with Birmingham to try to create this as well. We worked with Micron nationally to create the first kind of program from high school on in advanced manufacturing and chips. So that's what I mean when I say that. And those 2 things, Micron and Northwell, all just happened in the last 3 or 4 months. But look here in Jeffco, your superintendent is doing that as well. How many kids now in the different regions can actually touch on this, can actually see some kind of magnet program in career tech ed? So that's why when I come, Erica said we have to meet with Superintendent Gosselin. We have to see what we're doing and lifting that up. How many times that you've had any kind of press conference, first a press conference on education, but here you have the union head talking about these things, because education is all of our business. And instead of this opt-out and this fight, what are we doing to actually bring real solutions to all of our kids? That's what I meant.
Any others?
I have a question, and it is for Randi. Because you have experience in this area. So I'm Trish Crane, I'm with AO.com. Republicans have the majority in our state legislature. They will pass what they want to pass. And some people feel very defeated about this already. Number one, so 2 questions in this. What would you encourage people who don't believe in this particular kind of school choice? Like, what do they need to do? And you can, get all excited about it if you want to, but we are not very active here in Alabama.
So look, remember, I'm also a social studies teacher, and I'm a civics teacher. And I already said I taught AP Gov as my major dominant course that I taught when I taught in high school in Brooklyn. Part of what the strategy is on the other side, and I wouldn't say it's Republican or Democrat for the moment, part of the strategy on the other side is to make people give up. It's to basically say, oh, there's nothing you can do about it, you give up. Now, you notice everybody who's standing behind me, nobody's given up. And we're going to do whatever we can with whatever resources we have. But the work about coalition building, and I would actually say this. I started this by saying, how many times, Richard, have we been on the Edmund Pettus Bridge?
4 times.
People gave up. And then people didn't give up. And over and over and over. In terms of the American dream, I bet on America all the time. Not the catastrophizing that others say, but on American ingenuity, American passion, American purpose. I bet on what King said at the March on Washington, which is he had a dream. And that dream is about a better future. And so what happens is the people who oppose us, look, there's a fight about knowledge. There's a fight about funding. There's a fight about other things in the state that you all know about. IVF. There's a fight about what the potential is for young people. And we're going to be fighting for young people and for families over and over and over again. And I think that's why you see the labor movement ascendant again. I think that's why you see the work in Birmingham being ascendant again. I think that is why we have this remarkable leader in Central Alabama. And that's why I'm here. The arc of the moral universe does bend towards justice, but you've got to bend it, and you got to work it. And you can't let defeats make us sit on the sideline. So we're going to work with people who want to work with us. And I am intentionally in Central Alabama today because this union is not giving up, and the people behind me are not giving up, and educators and parents are not giving up on our kids' future. That's what we're doing.
Thank you. As a follow-up, this group here, the press, I exclusively cover education. I feel really privileged to do that. Folks cover a lot of different topics. What would you encourage the press to be looking for, reporting?
I love that question. So this is what I would do. Remember today I just talked a little bit about 2 schools and what I saw there through me? Go to schools. Ask to go there. Go to community events, do Saturday school, go to everything that any of these folks will take you everywhere. Go think about that story of that interaction. Like I saw today of an aide who lost her shoe. She was holding 2 kids. She lost her shoe, and then some of us rushed to help her put her shoe on. She says, I'm holding on to these kids. Whatever happens to my shoe happens to my shoe. I'm holding on to these kids. Think about that level of connection. Someone else told me about a kid that was there, and something horrible had happened with the kid's parents. And here's a kid who's in a wheelchair being attended to by a teacher constantly. A teacher told me, I'm trying because they didn't give me permission to tell these stories, so I'm being very careful about telling them. A teacher said to me, I said, what makes you do this? She said, it's my passion. I love these kids, and I feel a mission to do this. And every single day, I am doing this. And, and this isn't a school with special needs kids. Many of these kids are going to be the development is such that their development is not going to grow much. And that's what these educators are doing. And think about the kind of weight they are taking off their parents' shoulders each and every day. kids who went to Parker, the love of that school, the love of the history of that school. A teacher telling me, a civics teacher yesterday, telling me about how important that history is in terms of talking to kids about not giving up. My kids that I taught, one of the best things I get to do is that every now and then, one of my kids that I taught introduces me at a speech. And you can just the love of watching what those kids are doing now. They're not kids, they're adults. Watching them. My kids, all of whom were black and brown kids from Central Brooklyn. Central Alabama, Central Brooklyn. I taught in Central Brooklyn. My kids, when they won state competitions on the Bill of Rights against schools like Scarsdale, my kids, think about the pride of their parents, but more important, of them. And, you know, did I make them work hard? Oh boy, I made them work really hard. Did they like it? No, they didn't like it at all. But that resilience and what they learned, that's what we do. That's who we are. That's what is constant with every bus driver, every paraprofessional, every educator, be it an administrator or a teacher, first-year teacher in a classroom. That's our through line. So what I would ask you to do is show those stories, tell those stories. People in America need that right now anyway. Our best days are ahead of us if we are willing to actually seize our futures and not be afraid of it. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for coming.